Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. You're all being good kids in the school. You're right on time. We'll wait for a few usual minutes, giving a few time for others to join. For those of you already joined, let's make it very interactive. As if you attend any of my sessions, I'll like to keep it very interactive. So let's start by keeping it busy in the chat. For those of you who already joined, type in hello and any message for Rahul, and also where you're coming from. So that'll be quite interesting. And also Rahul will be interested to know what role you're playing, so that it might make sense at the end, because the topic is going to be very, very interesting. I just had a sneak peek of the slides, and it's not the usual. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm not going to be a spoiler. So yeah, Rahul, how are you?
Yeah, doing very well, Manoj. And thanks for the invitation. My pleasure.
Absolutely. I think it's not an exclusive invitation from myself. Of course, I feel honored, but I think it's the community who forced, right? I mean, that's what it was amazing when I posted on LinkedIn about the Voice of Community and webinar. I think your name was almost in every comment. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure. I think I last remember I met you at a Step-In conference in Bangalore, where I was one of the keynote speakers, and you had your own talk as well. I don't know if I remember the title somewhere. It had the Jugaad word in the title.
Yeah, it was an automation.
Yeah.
The automation story.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's always amazing to hear, Rahul, and we're so glad to have you here. And I think we can get started. We're about 3 minutes past 9. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We are here at the Voices of Community October edition with none other than Rahul Verma. For those of you who don't know about Rahul, let me give you a few words about him. Rahul is a consulting tester, a coach with over more than 2 decades of experiments, as he would like to say, not experience, which is interesting as well. And he right now works with Trendig, a German company specializing in the consulting space, testing consulting space, as well as the force behind the Agile Testing Days, which is, of course, one of my conferences in the checklist as well. I was just sharing that with him. And his consulting uniqueness lies in his experience mix. He's a very hands-on tester himself. Brings in a good balance between the business technical perspectives of quality in various dimensions. And I believe he also has his own framework called Arjuna, if I remember correctly, which is based on Selenium. So Rahul can talk about it later. And as a coach, he has trained hundreds of professionals on quality. And as I mentioned, he works at Trendig right now. He does an amazing job, trains people, and I believe he's straight coming in from a intensive workshop. So he's full on with its knowledge. So let's not wait further, and let's hand it over to Rahul to speak about Beyond Convenience, regression testing in its real avatar. And if you believe you know regression testing, I don't think so. And that's what Rahul is going to share more about. Without any further delay, Rahul, over to you.
Thanks, Manoj. That's quite a handful of introduction. Yeah, so, oh my goodness. Every time I have to start a presentation after all these years, there is this 1-2 minutes of hesitation all the time, and I need to fight it. I don't know. I don't think so. It's a fear of failure. It's just that I think it's a very responsible position when there are hundreds of people on the other side listening to you. So it becomes at times challenging to share anything which is worth your time or is meaningful. I would try my best that whatever 1 hour we are spending together, it is worth your time, and there is a point or two which you carry with you, all of you, back home, back to your work. Even if it's a disagreement, maybe some of the opinions which I express in this presentation, you might find them a little bit extreme, which is okay. But then that's what these platforms, I think, are for, that we challenge stuff, we reinterpret stuff, we relook at some things which everybody's considering that we know the stuff already. Yeah. So consider this presentation in that light. Let me share the screen, and then we get started. All right. So beyond convenience, regression testing in its real avatar. So this is the 4th presentation in the series of presentations which I'm doing this year, which is back to basics. There's a lot of noise in the industry, of course. Yeah, tooling, AI, ML, this, that. And I see that testers are focused more and more on everything which is not testing. That's what represents most of the focus, which I see, publicly or when I go to organizations, that testers are concerned with everything which is not testing. Yeah. So this is what I realized 2 years back. I took a break from talking in public forums and took a decision that I would, whenever I would talk only about the basics. Yeah. So the second hashtag which you see here is 𝐷𝐚𝐡𝐮. And this is what is one of the themes, again, which I'm focusing on, that whichever terms are being interpreted in a certain caged way by the community, by various authors, experts, organizations, let's take the concept and uncage it to, it's like a bird. You love the bird, then don't cage it. Let it fly, let it explore. So I'm going to focus on these things, let them fly and let them explore their true potential. Today's subject is regression testing. Yeah. Now I had a look at some of the previous webinars which this platform does, and very envious, I would say, and intimidated at times. That is it even a good topic to talk on regression testing, because one might think this is too basic. But you see, we consider something as easy when we look at it from a distance. When you look at regression testing from a distance, of course it is easy. Yeah, it's like you want to think about painting, but you are now thinking of painting a wall, a big brush. There is no precision needed. There's no art really needed. Just do something. Just do something on the wall and call it a painting. The art of painting is when you come closer. And then you realize that whatever you were thinking was a 2-minute, 3-minute work would take hours and days and months to complete a painting. So what are those details in regression testing which we are missing in the name of convenience? Yeah, that's what this presentation is about. This is the reality of basics, why I chose this topic and why it troubles me, why it bothers me, because I could have chosen another topic from testing field as well, in the same series of back to basics. Why regression testing became that subject. These are paraphrased statements from LinkedIn. Some of these are made by very popular influencers with 30,000, 40,000, 20,000 followers. Yeah, they have a big reach. So this could be found in their posts. It could be found in many vocal testers' comments on posts as well. How much time should I take for doing regression? Not regression testing, regression. Exploratory testing is critical. So there's a positioning of exploratory testing by making regression testing look bad. That regression testing doesn't find bugs. So exploratory testing is important. Positioning, relative positioning. We run our automated regression testing suite regularly. So it is assumed that whatever tests you had, you automated them, you repeat them, and that's what you say is our regression testing cycle. Yeah. Regression testing's value diminishes over time. Anybody has, Boris Bezer coined this principle as one of the statements in his book, which is an excellent book. So that phrase is pesticide paradox. So in the mix of all this confusion, pesticide paradox as a principle is thrown. Anywhere, randomly it is thrown and said, because of pesticide paradox, regression testing is useless. Yeah. You should just retire. You should retire these suites, etc., etc. And some extreme stances are taken on it. Yeah. Sometimes it is confused with written down test cases, already known information. Whatever is existing is what you repeat and you do regression testing. That's a common theme. And then, of course, I treat regression testing. I think of regression testing when I look at it across people's profiles. This is like the MS Word, MS Excel of testing world. You have just entered testing field, and within 2 to 3 days, people start writing, I am well versed with regression testing. Yeah, it's like MS Word. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. MS Excel, I know this is my skill. So along with those random vague entries in the profile, the regression testing also finds its place. Same people would be very hesitant when they mention Selenium. Same people would be very hesitant when they mention exact test design techniques because they don't know it. But when it comes to regression testing, everybody knows it. Everybody seems to know. And being an expert in it or highly experienced or knowledgeable, practical, whatever words you can choose, they are used to garnish this word in the description of such profiles also. Yeah, I don't see regression testing as a word missing from any tester's profile. And that's a big irony. The other part is, of course, the tech part, the tooling part, automation, artificial intelligence. These people who are positioning these tools, they would say, we can automate regression testing. And of course, then the demos which follow, they have this UI demo. Some UI basic surface level scenario shown to you, which AI is able to do. So this is that UI or functionality bias, which has hijacked testing profession, which is seen in regression testing, of course. Regression testing is more or less considered as an extension of functional testing, or at the most some UI, some elements of UX testing, usability, that's it. That's where regression testing thought process stops in our industry, okay? In short, and these are the themes. Regression testing and regression are used interchangeably. Yeah, this is not a gap in fundamentals. This is an absence of fundamentals. When we confuse these two terms and use them interchangeably, this is just not understanding fundamentals of testing at all. Okay, so that's one part. We are going to get this straight today. It's considered easy. It's confused with blind repetition. That just repeat. Don't think we have everything. We have money to throw at the problem, buy platforms, buy AWS subscription, get this lab running. Just repeat. Just bring parallelism, throw tools at the problem, and now do whatever we were doing in 20 hours, do it in 1 hour, whichever way. Whether you have the best of the technology available, whether you're doing it manually, the problem remains same. And confused with only repetition. Regression testing means you repeat what you have. The idea of creation of new things is not even brought to the table when people talk of regression testing. Extremely biased by user UI lens, of course. Yeah. Regression testing means functional testing. You are focused on functionality or maybe some UI aspects. It's a straw man, in short. You are making regression testing look weak so that other things can be positioned, or some things could be sold to you that, yeah, we can do this well, without telling you that this is a very, very surface level view of regression testing. And another irony is that it is considered distinct from exploratory testing, that as if it has no relationship with exploratory testing, and some people would go to the extreme in positioning that why exploratory testing is superior to regression testing. Okay, these are all the myths. This is so prevalent that all of these things bother me, and hence this presentation. Let's get to the basics on this note. So I would play a video, okay? I would play it twice. Let it imbibe in your mind, okay? What happens when a small object, any object, a stone or a metal piece, it hits water? What happens? Yeah, let's look at that visual. There is this direct point of impact. Of course, there's a lot of movement at that point, but then it doesn't mean that the surrounding space is unchanged. Now, what would be the impact? Let me play it again. You see, there's a direct point of impact, and then this force, it is causing some ripples. Which ripples do you care about? Till what point? A philosophical question here is, how much water is impacted when a stone hits water? A philosophical answer, a theoretical answer is all the water. Now let's come to constraints. Can you care about all the water? Can you care about all the ripples? But that's where cost constraints come. That's where time constraints would come. And maybe the skill constraint comes now. See, cost constraint is okay. Time constraint is okay. But do you have the people who know about ripples? How to measure them? What are the ripples to be taken care of? And then you can choose, these are the ripples we can take care of in X, Y, Z cost and time. But if this skill, if this thought process is completely missing, nothing can be done. Okay, then there is no ripple taking care strategy at all in place. Maybe you have the people, but do you have the tools? This is where tools role come into picture, that you can think of a ripple, but you don't have the tool to take care of that ripple. You could have a tool, you could have a person to do it, but do you have the process? Is it imbibed in your process? So any of these pieces could be missing. And because of cost, because of time, because of people skill, because of maybe process limitations, because of tool unavailability, wrong kind of tools, overpositioned tools, people fall back to convenience. And then they start calling whatever they're doing as regression testing. And that's the reality across organizations. The bias of UI lens of which I earlier talked about is not very clear. It's very subtle, very, very subtle. And this doesn't even exist just in testers' mind. It is across people today, which I see. Yeah. So you think of this test object, whatever you were testing, it could be an API service also, by the way. A service is also a black box. Yeah. For that matter, even a class is a black box. A module is a black box also. The whole point is thinking, this interface thinking. Yeah. That you think of something as a monolith, it exposes an interface, you're communicating with it. So you have a point of interaction, you have a point of observation, you're done. This has a very subtle impact on the way we think about testing, because the reality of a test object would look more like this. Any test object has different pieces which are a part of it. You can think of the smallest piece of code also, yeah, which you're currently handling. Even a module would have classes. Those classes have methods. They would have interdependencies, etc. And one of the things which we often miss is the participants. The last side of this diagram. So your software, for example, is not acting in the air. It is installed on an operating system. Yeah, there's a network usage most likely which is happening there. There could be a third-party service. It would need to maybe coexist with other third-party softwares. Maybe consume them directly, or there's an indirect need for that. All of these are a part, these are pieces of the puzzle when you have to start thinking of regression testing. Yeah, let's go one step further. What is the meaning of change? If you think of software as that water lake, what is that stone which could be thrown in that lake to cause ripples? So many a times people think of regression testing as a need when there's a new feature or when there's a bug fix. But is it only related to code changes? What about a configuration change? What about an OS patch? For example, let's say XYZ operating system, it has a limit of 512 open handles, file handles. Yeah. And you have a software which needs parallel open file handles to do its operations. So there's an OS patch which happens, and they reduce this default limit in the operating system from 512 to 256. The point is that till that point, you may not have even realized that there's a relationship between this OS parameter with your software. So there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity here that you actually understand more about what you're building as a developer as well as a tester. But if we keep this confined thought process of new feature and fix, etc., only code change in relation to regressions, this process would be completely lost. Yeah, there could be coexisting. Any participant, you have an integration with PayPal. If a change happens in PayPal, in terms of maybe its API traffic, in terms of let's say an API call limit, a configuration change, or an actual code change, it is going to have an impact. Yeah, resource changes. If the number of cores are changed, if the RAM is changed, if the nature of disk is changed, if the bandwidth availability is changed, this is not really code change. These are infrastructure changes, and these could have an impact also. Yeah. So back to basics. What is a regression? To understand regression testing, the moment you understand what is a regression, all these confusions would go away. All these artificial cages on the way you think about regression testing, it's going to go away. It could be a transient or non-transient bug. I have just put this definition together. So, do not look into too much technicality or fancy wording or punchlines here. But I think this captures a lot about the concept of regression in the context of regression testing, actually much better than most of the things available out there. Yeah. It's a transient or non-transient bug, means it could be permanent, it could be temporary. It could go away on its own. Introduced or unmasked, the problem could exist already, but because of the way it was used in the absence of any further change, it did not come to surface. But because of certain changes, the kind of changes we discussed, now it's a part of the operation and it is now unmasked. Or it could be a new problem which is caused. At the point of change in a component, now typically people think that if I'm making a change in point A, the regression would happen only elsewhere. Okay, this is a usual thought process that the point where I'm making the change cannot have regressions. The regressions are only elsewhere. I'm going to prove to you that this is not true. You can have regressions in the same point of change also. Okay, so give me a couple of slides that I would show to you. And at other points, of course, which is the traditional way of looking at regressions. Yeah. So regression is a bug which is introduced because of a change, a certain nature of bug. What is regression testing? It's testing done to find regressions. This is the absolute foundation of thinking about regression testing. It has nothing to do with tools and technology, doing it in small organization, big organization, how much to do. It has nothing to do with that. Yeah. So regressions are bugs which are introduced because of change. What type of change? Any kind. Where? Anywhere. Yeah. And what is regression testing? We do regression testing to find such regressions. This bias of functional testing is keeping us away from the true potential of regression testing. Now, there is no rule, if you go as per these fundamentals, that a change of functional nature, a configuration change which is related to functionality, a code change which is related to functionality, a new feature which is a functional feature, would have only functional regressions caused. There is no such rule. A functional change could have a performance regression. It could have a security regression. It could have interoperability or any other quality dimension. So you see, regression can be caused because of a change in terms of any quality aspect, and the cause, the effect of it, because of this cause, can be in any other quality dimension. So there's a many-to-many mapping between quality dimensions, which we are talking about. In fact, it could have impact on performance as well as security. The question you need to ask yourself is, and an honest answer to yourself, do you do performance testing as a part of your regression testing? Do you even have that thought process? Do you conduct security tests also as a part of regression testing? First of all, do you realize that there is no way that you can assume that your existing tests are going to cover regressions? You may need to create new tests, and most likely you would need to create new tests, because this assumption that whatever we need is already there, we just repeat it, this assumption itself is flawed. This is what I call convenience. We are doing things in the name of regression testing just because it is convenient, it's easy, it is repeatable, and doing real regression testing would need thinking, and that takes a lot of work. Yeah, you would have to at times slow down. In Agile, you say fast and flexible, but what we don't realize is you can't be fast and flexible at the same time. If you need to be flexible, you need to slow down. Once you've catered to that change, you can again resume speed. Yeah. So these are two mutually contradicting goals. So a lot of focus in Agile world has been on being fast, and the flexibility is done at the cost of doing things at a cheaper level rather than deeper level. Yeah, there's a compromise there. You can take this idea to an extreme as well. Whatever we discussed so far is the technology lake. Whatever changes we were discussing were of technical in nature in the test object, within some of its parts, or in the participants. But what about a business change? In this case, there's no infrastructure change, there's no code change, there's nothing at all. But let's say you have an e-commerce website. Sorry, there's an e-commerce website, and the marketing team in your company launches this new program, $1 billion day, this dollar day, 75% off campaign on certain products. And now what would happen? The traffic to your website is going to change because of this simple business announcement from your marketing team. There's a lot of advertisement going on. The nature of traffic to your website is going to change in those 3 days. But you were repeating the same tests. There's this repetition. There's nothing, in the name of regression testing, why should we do a change? It's all repetition, isn't it? But it should have changed. The workload distribution pattern should have been tweaked, and a new performance test should have been conducted for checking for this regression. Because if you're able to prove that existing things work, it's no more this existing stuff at all. This business drive is going to change the traffic to your e-commerce website. And that's why you see all these news all the time that on the biggest sale day, the website crashes. Same thing happens to a lot of our government websites that, you're doing same tests, but there is this 1 week, 2 weeks before the final, cutoff date when the traffic actually changes to this website. And during those 2 weeks, that last 1 week, the application becomes unavailable. It crashes. These are also regressions caused by business things. And then the final lake, which is ecosystem lake. You were developing a product for 6 months. You are too much concerned with my technology, my business, my technology, my business. And then there's a law change. There's a compliance requirement. Or some other company somewhere, you were fighting with analytics and somebody introduces an AI-based solution during the same time. Functionally, as per your requirements, things are working, but it's no more useful. So is it a regression? Of course it is a regression. Yeah. So this is, I of course call it an extreme opinion because you see, I'm of the opinion that most of the testing which we do is regression testing. The moment you have first feature and then you start changing it in its natural flow itself, whatever follows, if you carefully see, the more you do, the further you move, 80-90% of your work is actually regression testing. Can one person do this? Is there any person in your company right now or in your career whom you know about, who knows about all types of architectures, their interactions, whatever operating systems are in play across your infrastructure, has deep information about all the configuration parameters in relation to software, how things work, is also business savvy, knows the business side also, and keeps himself, herself up to date with every single thing out there going in the IT industry, which can have impact, knows laws, knows compliances, knows standards and everything. Frankly, I have not met such a superhero in my life. I don't think so such a person exists. Regression testing is an extremely complex task. I don't think so a tester can do it alone at all. Developers cannot do it alone. Anybody, it's not an individual's or individual team's task at all. You want to have a proper regression testing in your company, the best bet, we would never be able to perfect it, but the best bet is to have a cross-functional team. It should have representation from business. It should have representation from developers, management, testing team for the product. And in case you have a multi-app kind of integration, this team should think of regressions by building proper relationships and the risk associated that, and this knowledge should be captured. It should not be lost. That's the only practical way I can think about it. Now, do you have time, cost? You might think that way. You see, making choices of what to do on a regular basis, every day, every week, every month, those are pragmatic choices you would make on top of this model. In the absence of this model, what you're left with, just convenience and not treating regression testing the way it is supposed to be treated at all. Yeah. On that note, some of the concluding points I would like to give to you. it's an extremely complex task. As I mentioned, accept it first. Yeah. And it is not at all blind repetition. You would need to create new stuff when you're thinking regression testing. Okay. Exhaustive coverage, yeah, it is impossible. But then should we jump to convenience that we have everything, just run it all. We have the money to, throw at infrastructure. Maybe you can do it when you have less coverage. You see, this is that irony. You have less coverage today, so you're able to run them all. Tomorrow, when you want to increase coverage, you would not want to increase coverage because then you would not be able to run it all. You'll have to make choices. So choices are always made on top of an educated system. In the absence of that, it's always a chaos. Yeah. Testers alone cannot do it. I have talked about cross-functional regression testing team. Testers can drive it. You can own doing regression testing, but you're like a moderator or you are a facilitator in such a thing. The way Manoj is driving all this webinars, not doing webinars by himself. Yeah. So you see, this moderation is a critical task which a tester can do. You can ask pertinent questions. You can establish what type of knowledge is to be captured. That role can be played by a tester, and then come back, translate to what type of tests are needed, and then do those tests. But the source of this information, a tester cannot have. Practically, we cannot have all this information with us. Capture risk relationships, of course, it's a feature to feature or participant to test object relationships. There should be a clear-cut risk capturing methodology in place. Of course, it is also the foundation of risk-based testing, which is another vague term, by the way, which we use. But then when you take that seriously, it has a big impact on the way we look at testing. The last point is related to automation or non-AI. You see, the problem with ignoring fundamentals is that people are able to, get away with very cheap service. In case, you see, what is the kind of problem which AI, a tech like AI, should solve? Do you want AI to solve UI automation problems for you? Basic problems? Is it really a good use of this technology? Because the best of the minds are busy solving that. Go to LinkedIn, look at what are the AI people talking about. Which layer are they providing, you solutions? And why are organizations happy with that? Because you see, we are not serious. We are not serious about testing. With a tech like AI, wouldn't you want to solve problems that, okay, regression is a complex problem. Now help me build a system in which some of these interrelationships are automatically diagnosed, automatically built. So give me a way using a tool that OS dependencies, third-party dependencies, it is able to actually build me a risk model. Shouldn't we be applying a mind in terms of AI on that complexity? Because we are not serious there, because we are not serious on the fundamentals there, we end up using good, advanced, complex technology also to solve cheaper surface level problems. And that is the key trouble which I have. What bothers me is that we continue to do that. We had automation with us, and that's what we did automation, for. We used automation to do, again, cheaper level, surface level things, rather than doing more. Rather than increasing coverage, we achieved the same coverage and told ourselves we are doing it faster, we are doing it cheaper. Okay, to lull our mind down, to lull our thinking down, we use all those arguments. So these were some of the points which I wanted to make. I hope I have not taken much time because I just wanted to have a conversation about it. So I'm going to stop the screen share. Thank you for your patience listening to me. I would open the phone to questions now.
Thank you, Rahul. That was short and concise and pretty detailed information that one could look forward to. I think something very interesting for me was, I could easily resonate. Well, I think there's words you talked about. In this fast-paced world, we forget, and even we go cheaper and not deeper. I think that was fantastic lines, that should probably, trigger a lot of conversations within attendees as well as to whoever is going to listen to this recording later in the YouTube or wherever we post. Thank you, Rahul. And we can definitely open up for questions. So folks, please use the Q&A section on the Zoom panel that you see down below for your questions, and let's take it up. There's one question in the comments box that I want to talk about it, Rahul. I think there's a question is about how about SDLC with mini waterfall if partial feature delivery to production, and how to anticipate regression.
So this is that constraints part which I was talking about. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So you see, this is where you are taking a process model and then asking yourself how I can't do it. For example, this is when I go as a consultant, I hear this. So you see, this is a goal displacement. Our goal as a company is not about being SDLC compatible, agile compatible. This is internal quality. We are here to build good products and then take impact and other things into place. So the only thing I can suggest, practically, can you do it? Would you care for it? I don't know. I'm not. I can't comment on that. But my suggestion always to people is, please slow down. There's no hurry. This artificial deployment every 5 minutes, nobody cares. The user doesn't give a damn to your 5-minute deployment. Please understand. Please understand a basic. There is no earth-shattering thing which you are doing in every 5 minutes. There is no big jump in quality for a user, which happens every 5 minutes. There's nothing like this happening. You're not running a spaceship. Okay? Simple e-commerce website, simple email application, simple social platform. Why are you in a hurry? What is the hurry? Why don't you take a back step, set up proper testing and quality methods, and then build the speed? If we are thinking that we would keep progressing faster and faster, along the way, we would look at deeper things. Practically doesn't happen that way. Yeah. Sadly, as a tester, as an individual contributor, you would have limited say in that. Maybe you can share these webinars, across your company on the education part. But in case you are a participant who has a say, you see, you have some level of authority, start bringing some changes in this direction if you are convinced. If you're convinced that, yes, there is a purpose to it, of course, it would need some sacrifices. It would need some changes to be done. The reason I'm specifically staying away from the SDLC specific question is because, you see, I don't have the luxury of processes. As a consultant, you call me for a day, at times 2, 3 days, 4 days. I don't know what process you're using. Okay. And this, whatever I've suggested to you now has nothing to do with whether you're following Scrum or Kanban or this. That is your process model. This is the problem to solve. So how do you solve it? How do you fit this into your journey? At times needs you to slow down a little bit and think that our primary goal is to take care of quality, not to do daily stand-up meeting. Okay, this disconnect, I hope you're able to understand that in a lot of these dogmatic decisions, cheaper than deeper, that still remains my answer. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I said I love that line the most. So thank you, Rahul. I believe that answers your question. Cool. The next one that I'm going to pick up is from Nikhil Kumar. How to complete regression testing on time if we consider about config changes, OS changes, and performance aspects? Again, there's a question relating to the time, the pressure, constant pressure about, if you look back a decade, we have been still saying, I would say, that quality is still an afterthought process. And of course, people put in quality engineering as one of the key aspects, and people is giving more importance. And then I think your point around config changes, OS changes was also quite interesting. And that's what Nikhil wanted to understand as well. So what's the time factor?
So that would always remain the challenge. I remember one of my recent presentations 2 months back, and my mentor said that this style of thinking would lead to a lot of useless tests. Anyways, so okay, practical stuff, practical answers. You can't do it all. Okay, so I describe it as a lens problem. Okay, So please pay attention that when you see, there's an understanding of a subject. What is regression testing? When you want to understand the subject, you cannot look at it from the lens of constraints. You cannot think about it from the constraint of cost, time, people, process, technology. That's what first question was also doing. As a takeaway from this presentation, what I would suggest is ask yourself, are you knowledgeable about regression testing or not? Okay, that's the first part. Because when you're provided cost, time, money, it would not automatically solve your knowledge problem. That won't solve it. Okay. So you see, you have to look at any concept first from the lens of possibilities. That, okay, there is a many-to-many map between quality dimensions, and a change could be anything, etc., etc. Build a risk model. What are the probabilities? You can look at historical data. It would take that slow down part. Take a break for a few days. Stop doing what you're doing. Take a few days, build this model, and this cross-functional team, anyways, is the basis of a lot of things. You want to do proper performance engineering in your company, you need this team. You want to do proper security engineering, threat modeling in your company, you need this team. Building this team is the single most important thing you would do. And it's an irony that this team is not existing, whereas Agile's foundation is a cross-functional team. Okay. So it is also going to the basics of Agile itself. Agile never said build a team of developers and testers together. There's a business representation, there's an ecosystem representation, and there's a tester representation. It's a cross-functional team. Yeah. So anyways, so you see the making choices. For example, you may not do performance testing regularly. I understand that. You may not do a security testing regularly. I understand that. But do you know you have to do it? Is the question of knowledge. If you don't even know that you have to conduct a performance test because of a change, there is no point of talking of cost and money. So let's say 2 months later, now you have the opportunity to do performance testing or security testing, or you're engaging a consultant because you are missing that skill. Do you know what to ask? Which test to conduct, which you would need? That is a question of knowledge, which I'm coming to. Just by throwing money, you see, there are very well-funded startups. Do you think they are doing regression testing correctly? With all the money, with all the time, they are in the building phase. They have all the opportunity to do it right. Do you think they do it right? So you see, these two are very conflicting things. If we have taken some measures, a style of working which has landed us in a mess, we cannot make the mess itself as the excuse. Okay? To beat it, we need to slow down, relook at it, and give ourselves this space. Would you be able to provide this space? Is the thing which would decide, are you solving this problem or not? Okay. There is no sugar-coated answer to give for it. You need to slow down. You need to think about it, and you would yourself find a way how much to do when. All of this cannot be done regularly. As a consultant, I say only one thing: start small. So you see, this is an extreme view to tell you that whatever you're treating in a too simple way is not so simple. It is just convenience. So take a first step. Take, that step is seriousness, that, oh, we are not taking care of regression testing the way we should. First step of intent, the motivation part. Set up a small team to begin with. That rather than just as testers, have one tester, one developer, maybe an architect, and at times involve your manager. Let's sit together and start with something. You would see that in this case, the change would take more time, but it would be more pragmatic. So whichever way works for you. Is it one cut short? Let's stop, let's do it first, and then we would resume, or we do it along. Whatever method works for you, do something about it. Yeah, so that's what I can tell you. And it is doable. It is doable. It would take time. Yeah.
It's an amazing thoughts, Rahul. I believe you've tried to summarize such huge concepts into such simple words. I've never seen anyone do that before, such successfully. I believe that's coming in very very simple and strong words. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is I've also seen companies who teams. I've been a consultant myself, and I've seen, okay, they used to have one regression pack, the continuous build monitoring that happens, and we say continuous testing, and they run that same pack everything for every changes. And that's what you're trying to say is try to understand what sort of test you want to run and don't go with the convenience, right? So that's what the beyond convenience part is coming. Don't use the same pack. Of course, you could use it, but also you want to know what sort of testing would a small change would be needed. For example, a change on, say, some OS configurations or API limit hit. The same pack would not help, but rather a specifics would help you more fine tune or find more bugs. And I think that's an excellent way to put forward. A slight change, Rahul, here. I think one common pattern that I've seen from your answers is about slowdown, which is great. And I'm saying, I think most of them here, I think I saw a comment from Saif is also that it's the management, right? They keep pushing to fasten up the release process, and we are worried about delivering faster. So any interpersonal or communication, any skills that you want to touch upon on how do we go about it? Because as you mentioned, if I'm not in that position of having a say, then how do I get started with that?
Okay, maybe I start with some history. Okay. So you see, I've been going to conferences for like, I think 16, 17 years now. 2007 is when I presented my first talk in Steppen. Yeah. And 2-3 years later, you go to a conference, usually when testers talk, they would talk about their managers. That what is the source of the problem? My manager. I used to jokingly say on stage, who are the managers 10 years from now? You. So do not create the same problems 10 years from now. Yeah. As a tester, when you become a lead and then senior lead and manager and senior manager, if you are troubled with something today, tell yourself, make a promise to yourself that when you grow to next role, you're going to be more empathetic towards testing as a profession, first of all, because unless you love your profession, how do we even talk about these things, right? These things are useless then. I have been a tester throughout my career, 20 years. I'm not a manager. I'm an individual contributor. I love my profession. Yeah. I'm happy. I'm happy making fluctuating money also. That's how I decided for myself. Yeah. That takes away, by the way, a lot of burden of doing things in a certain way somebody's asking you to do. Yeah. Now, if you become a lead, take care of some problems which are bothering you today. Shield your team, protect them. Yeah. Become a manager, protect them. Because you see, today's managers were those testers who were complaining against their managers 10 years back. Please keep this in mind. That's first practicality. And always remember, managers would say the same thing about their managers also. That I'm not able to do, you see, engineering manager is telling, and an engineer manager will say, this CXO is saying that. So this chain never breaks. So practical part is we all are under constraints, including managers. Jokes apart, the best of the managers which I had are the people because of whom I stand here today. I learned from them. They shaped my career. I owe it to them. Yeah, they were magicians. So one thing which I can suggest in this case is that in case you're a tester, of course, you're not in a position of authority in that case to bring such changes. Do some homework in form of regressions. Start understanding a bit of these parameters. Okay. Find something based on that analysis, something concrete. Maybe you have to spend your personal time, maybe 1 hour a day, spend a month like that. Okay. It took me 2 years to position Python in McAfee. I was disallowed to code in Python programming. 2 years. And then I was able to form a team in which Python was used as the programming language for testers. Okay. It takes time. It takes sacrifices at times. Web security was never my work as an employee. I worked for 5 years in my personal time. And when I stepped into consulting, I was a web security consultant. If you believe in it, see, if you have liked an idea and constraints are what is stopping you from acting on it, this is the solution. If you're not convinced anyways, whatever I said, just put it in a dustbin, forget about it. All ideas are never important. Whatever I said is not important. Yeah. If in case you're convinced that idea is good, then spend some personal time, 1 hour a day, do on this regression thing, find one specific area in your product, look at previous changes, look at bug history, previous regressions which were caused. Find something new. Find something new. It would not be found today, tomorrow. Maybe it takes some days. build a report around it, then publish it to management. Show them value. I did this. This is the value. And then believe me, you see this, chicken and egg, that give me an opportunity so that I can do something. That doesn't work. Doesn't work. But managers are not fools. Okay. Forget aside, I don't know which type of specific, those 5% manager you might be talking about, politics and all of that. People are generally good at heart. Your manager is also under constraints. Okay. Empathize. Show value. Show the method you did it in the form of problems you uncovered. There is a better chance that you would be able to position it and then do it the way you like it. In the absence of demonstration of this value, just by saying, I read somewhere, I listened to Rahul, or I have this idea, it becomes a difficult positioning. So do some sacrifice, spend an hour a day, maybe personal time, do the work, show the value. There is a very high chance. Like if I look back at 20 years, what I've worked, this is the method which more or less worked every time. Yeah. I was able to introduce a fuzzing rig. Fuzzing, you have to run millions of tests, not 10, 20 dynamically running tests. I was able to introduce that. Yeah. There was no concept of central framework across teams in McAfee Labs at the time. So I created a draft framework in my own time. Then I positioned. And for your information, out of the 7 teams which accepted it, my team was the last one. I was able to sell the framework better to other 6 teams. My team looked at those 6 teams and then said, oh, it looks like a good idea, so we should also use it. Yeah. So, no easy path. There's no magic I can tell to you, but I can, as I mentioned, 20 years of experiments. These are those experiments, trying out something, failing at it, sometimes succeeding with it. But I'm happy. Yep. Long answer, I know, but your questions are good quality questions. They deserve honest, direct answers.
No, absolutely, Rahul. I think I was just about to say, this doesn't look like a webinar or a Q&A. It just looks like a tea shop conversation with a cup of chai or a tea, as we say, right? It's very candid, it's very open, and I think I'm not sugarcoating it. I think you can look for yourself on the comments. People are loving it, so please keep it that way. I'm sure everyone will enjoy it. And
in general, has very, very kind to me, always encouraging. Yeah. So
sure,
thanks a lot for.
Quickly on, you touched upon the first testing concept, and I wanted to talk about another testing which I also recently heard someone spoke about it in one of the conferences in Melbourne on risk-based testing. So risk-based testing, and then the full regression testing with not the convenience. So how do we balance it out, Rahul, in this, again, the fast-paced?
Okay, so I don't want to drop all the bombs in a presentation, but let me tell you, I don't think so there's anything called risk-based testing. I use the term because it is prevalent in the industry. So I believe in the idea of risk-based testing more than the people who created risk-based testing, because I think all testing has to be risk-based. So you see, ask yourself, if there is something called risk-based testing, is there something called non-risk-based testing? Would you really want to do testing without assessing risks? Not really. It's like context-driven testing. Okay, then tell me what is non-context-driven testing, where you don't bother about what is the context of the product, context of the project, you see? So the context, risk, value, exploration, these are such beautiful concepts that they should not be separated into a type of testing. They should be at the heart of every tester. Every tester should consider risk. You see, can I give an example here?
Sure,
yeah?
Please.
All right. So let's say you have a field, and now you go for equivalence class partitioning, very basic core technique for testers. Now, a typical way equivalence class partitioning, let's say it's an alphanumeric string which is allowed in that field. You think of user field or something. So first style of partitioning where you try is what is allowed, what is disallowed, valid partitioning, invalid partitioning. When you come to invalid partitioning, you would think of special characters. And you talk to 99% of the testers, they would find one special character put it in, choose that from this partition, and we are done with coverage. Yeah. What is the risk which we are covering here? The risk which we are covering here is a functional risk. Okay. Functional risk. In the security space, I apply the same technique. Now, the thing is, you see, common sense. What is the meaning of a special character? If all special characters are same, then why do we call them special characters? Is an angle brace same as a double quote? Is a double quote same as a single quote? Is a single quote same as a semicolon? Same as space? No. So when you now bring this field to security testing, and fuzz testing is also related here, fuzzing, we actually expand on this. We give due diligent respect to special characters, even their sequence. For example, double quote is not same as double quote semicolon combination. That's the concept of payloads. Yeah. So what is the risk? You see, so this is where, as a tester, you need to think that I'm being given a testing problem. This, whatever my knowledge says, it should take 2 weeks, let's say, to test it. What if I give you 1 week? Now, if I put a constraint, you should be able to choose based on the level of risk. What is more important? Cover them first. What if I give you 3 days? You can't do it all. You can't do it all. You have to choose that. These are the most important things. So you know what is the value you can deliver in 3 days? What is the value you would deliver in 5 days? What is the value you would deliver in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, right? Up to your knowledge constraint. So it means the sense of order and risk should always be there as a part of even choice of techniques, choice of tooling, choice of layers. The second part of the question is the tough one. You said you would take 3 weeks. What if I give you 6 months? I really believe in testing. I believe in quality. I have arranged for the cost. I've arranged for time. I have the best tool I can give you. Now you should ask yourself, do you have the skill to do this testing for 6 months, where each day you are coming up with unique tests? Because if that is not true, it's a question of skill and knowledge. And no money in the world can cover that gap. So I focus usually when I talk to testers, because constraints are different from one organization to other. So if 20 years later also I'm studying testing, I focus on, okay, I'm exhausted, I'm done with my ideas. If I have 3 months, let me earn that 4th month of learning every year. Yeah. So that's where I go deeper. Like this year, I'm studying boundary value analysis again. I'm studying domain testing, equivalence class partitioning, sampling. I'm studying them again from scratch to find those blind spots and gaps which I have left. Yeah. So you see, knowledge is one thing we should focus, and the smartness, making choices, respecting constraints, ordering of our tasks, that is the pragmatic part of it. And good testers would typically find this balance somewhere in their style. That becomes your style of working. When you grow to management, you can then, extend this style of working to your team and give them freedom, as well as help them understand the constraints in which organizations exist and how to help them in a proper way. Yep. That's what I meant in my profile when I say business and tech. You see, this is that I don't blame management really. I can empathize with them, but I also understand the ground realities of a tester, because that's the layer I work. I'm not a manager. So, but we need to respect both layers. Yep.
Thanks, Rahul. That was fantastic again. For a change, I don't want to ask a question, but I just want to read out a few comments because that looks fantastic. There's a comment from S. Prabhu saying, really good talk, Rahul and Manoj. I mean, I didn't do any talk, but you put it in such simple words, it makes it worthwhile. And there's a comment from Saif Ali. Very enlightening. I wish every manager could be like Rahul. Hopefully. So Saif Ali, I hope you understood what Rahul said. So maybe someone should say the same in 10 years from now, if you're someone who are at early stage. So I think that's could be the biggest takeaway. And I'm sure Rahul would be happy to hear probably 10 years later. And it's also from Ran Kari. Love the analogy of fast versus flexible. Great session. Thank you. All right. These are some of the comments, and there's okay, she says yes. So hopefully a good manager. And so Rahul, I'm sure this question is something that you expected, or our audience would be disappointed, or even my team would be disappointed if I didn't ask you anything about AI specifically. So I know you had a bit on the AI part where don't use AI for cheap things, but instead use it for more intuitive, where AI is put in its full potential, like maybe telling you which sort of test to run rather than using it for other things. I mean, using it other things is fine, but I think AI's full potential is using on such cases. So any insights from you specifically on putting regression testing to context and the AI? Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So I remember, some of the things, some of the ideas which are deterministically possible also, but they have not been, tried fully. I remember I was at Google conference, and I had presented an idea there, which was called auto-regressing regression testing. Yeah. So, which means that you can build an automation system with basic subscription model, that, for example, you're making changes as you build more and more understanding about your system. So you build maybe 50, 100, 150 tags for what you're building. And then whenever you, to describe your system. And then whenever you're publishing a change, rather than writing descriptive commentary, you also check in tags. Yeah. And with a simple tag matching, because the tests which you're on the other side, you're building an automation system, they're also tagged. So you see, with the simple subscription system of tags, and the choices could be made. But at the heart of this also lies a proper regression analysis. That what are the things, because somebody has to develop the tag and tag it. It still needs that base. Yeah. You can build some kind of probes in your system. Yeah. You can build some probes. It is, of course, a high level of intrusion that I can understand, but in a non-publicly deployed system, in case you have probes in terms of how your system acts, and then whenever there's a change happen, there is a technology today also to build a graph dependency of different modules, etc., right? Or how a software interacts with the hardware, how traffic is going on. The kind of minds which are working in AI today, I consider them very intelligent people. Okay. Do you want those people to solve the self-healing problem for you, to have a backup locator for a UI control when ID-based identification fails? Is that a use of such a mind? Or you would want those minds to work together and then build this regression analysis system for you? Because they can do it. They can do it. Yeah, they have those minds. I believe in them. I believe in this technology actually more. So you see, UI automation at the top of agile pyramid. Since a decade that we established that UI tests just do exploratory testing. Take your automation to API and lower layers. Then which is the problem which we are trying to solve today? Again, UI problem, UI testing problem. So you see, I usually say, how many times should it happen to you before it occurs to you? Good technology is coming our way, and we continue to solve very surface level things with that. We should use AI automation to increase coverage, not to translate coverage. We are just translating, and this translation is going on. Automation also ended up translating, whereas at lower layers the fuzzing is automated. Why are you conducting 1,000 tests? Why not think of millions of tests? How many teams really do static code analysis despite tool availability? Dynamic analysis to find, let's say, memory leaks right at the dev stage. They are happy to conduct a soak test, which is extremely costly at black box test level, a problem which they could have found using basic code analysis. Yeah. So you see, these ironies exist again because the fundamentals are missing, because investments are being made in companies based on hype, a lot of buzzwords. Or for example, we would succeed now. Why? Because we follow Scrum. This thing, it would make us fast, or I cannot work in a V model anymore. I can work only. You see, these are self-created cages. These exist at process level. These exist at tooling level. These also exist at self-thinking level. In the other areas, I can't help this community much. So I usually just focus in my talks that maybe in the room right now, out of, let's say, 100 people who could be there, Is there one person? Is there just one person till whom my thoughts can reach? Then I have just done my, I can happily look at myself that, okay, I've done something good, and that is sufficient. I can't change everybody. Yeah.
Absolutely, Rahul. Thank you so much. I think a big fan of the dependency graph. In fact, I usually don't pitch about LambdaTest products anywhere because that's the community part that I do. But I gave a talk in Bangalore last year on an Open Source India conference in 𝐸. So my talk was about a test at scale, which is an open source repository which we had, which sort of will tell you what test to run based on the code changes that you did, which is actually following some of those models that you mentioned. In fact, now we are trying to build a similar for end-to-end test as well. I think usually end-to-end tests are very tricky because unit tests, you can do a one-to-one component mapping and you usually say, but I think that's where you, as you mentioned, right? So the AI has the technology to intelligently tell you, and I think that's what we're trying to build as well. So that's a great piece of advice on AI. Thank you so much. And yeah,
such possibilities are going to increase in case we are able to use it in a proper way. And I would love to see that demo sometime of the tech which you mentioned. I love to see.
absolutely, Rahul. Even I'm eagerly waiting to have hands-on. It's really tricky, and absolutely someone like you would definitely we look forward to your feedback and comments on that. But with that, thank you so much, Rahul. We don't usually overrun, but I think this was such a interesting and candid conversation with you. We are 8 minutes overdue, and thank you all of you for hanging around. Rahul, we have folks from Chennai, Bangalore, Germany, Pakistan, Pune, UK, someone from Nigeria as well, Kuala Lumpur. The whole world map is here listening to your talk, and hopefully the message will go deep down with all of them, and hopefully to see them as a good manager, and also hoping that they don't run the same visual regression pack, but also try to understand and test for the architectural properties or any of those non-functional or cross-functional requirements that should come their way. Thank you so much, Rahul, for your time, and for everyone joining us.
My pleasure. It was a great opportunity, and you have a very nice initiative running here. So all the best, and I wish you a lot of more voices from the community who are able to help the community. So thank you very much, and thanks to all the participants for your kindness and your kind words and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rahul. And the session is recorded. I know there were some comments asking about it. So it will be posted in our LambdaTest YouTube channel. I believe Rahul will also share this on his socials, and we look forward to it. And if you haven't subscribed to Voice of Community, please do subscribe on the website lambdatest.com/voices of community. You'll get email updates whenever we have next update. And this is a monthly edition. All those of you who attend previous editions, you would know. So next month, we will look forward to having another speaker with another great topic. Till then, take care and see you all soon. Bye.